What are family dinners like at your house? At my house, I have always encouraged lively debate and discussion. Even when the kids were young, we would talk about their experiences, put them into a larger social context, and see what those experiences meant spiritually. My goal was always to make the kids think. Today, my kids are all adults, so some of the topics have changed, and of course, their experience and insight have changed too. So our dinner discussions now have the added benefit of two different points of view from one generation to another. I had the idea of slapping down a microphone in the middle of the kitchen table to record some of these dinner discussions. This discussion was on some of the issues that might be causing some of the younger generation to leave the church. The mic setting was a little off, but the discussion is grand. It's time to invite you to dinner. So take a seat and enjoy. So, let's pose a question to you guys. How much do you think the internet plays a role in your generation leaving the church?
Very big role.
Information. You're talking about how much? Like,
How much does it affect?
Why?
Both.
I'd say information.
You said because there's more information?
Just it's so much easier to attain. If you want,
Like
without the
information
internet, who are
against
you
the
going to
church?
ask all your questions to? People in the church?
Mm-hmm.
And what are they going to tell you?
Right. Positive stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think that millennials are the first generation where so much information is available. And because of that, no one's really been taught how to discern what's opinion and what's fact. And so I can look anything I want up on the internet, and everybody's entitled to their own opinion for sure, but that doesn't mean that it's a good one or it's correct. And so I completely
agree.
discuss with people that are just as lost as I am, and someone that says something with confidence, all of a sudden what they said gets taken as fact.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that
Okay.
totally.
So I think that, yeah, there's so much information available that because of the quantity, I guess, it's hard to sift through what's actually like not valid opinion, but what's real, what's true, and what's opinion.
Well, you bring up a good point too. Our parents aren't going to be able to teach us how to do it
because they never had it.
they never had it. I mean, we do now, but it's
Not the same.
not the same. We know, our generation knows more about the internet than our parents and how to use it by far. So we didn't grow up with, okay guys, make sure if you read something on the internet that you fact check it.
Yeah.
That you're, like, take it with a grain of salt, you know?
Or look for, a positive thing also,
Yeah.
right?
Well, so I think in addition to that, I think it's that the church wasn't prepared for it.
Nope.
I don't think that they got ahead of things. It's like anything, right? When you're protecting yourself and you tend to become more defensive, and you tend to when you're only looking inward, in a sense, you don't put things out there that you maybe should, and address them that are like historical issues for the church,
Yeah.
right? You don't come out and say it. And then you go online and you read about it and you're like, and even if it's something that is a fact and it's not opinion, you're like, I didn't know this. I was never taught this.
Well, yeah.
And it's so easy, it's so easy to have, it's like, especially when you're growing up and you go through primary and then you go through young men and young women's and then maybe a mission, and then you go out into the real world. And if you haven't addressed issues ever, you can easily tend to think,
This was hid from me.
this was hid from me in some sense.
Hidden?
Why didn't I know about this?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
Well, when you hear it from a negative point of view first anyways, that's the first thing you hear about it, and you feel betrayed in a way.
It's a bait and switch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, are you kidding me? Like,
Do you think that's just one thing though, or do you think that? See, with the internet, it seems to me like you'd go to one thing. I don't think you'd feel betrayed by it.
No,
but I think you get a seat of doubt.
No, I think that because of the way that social media is, everybody's in everybody else's business. So I think millennials have a different view on what privacy is.
Yeah.
And if you're not completely transparent, then there's something you're hiding, so you're untrustworthy.
Totally.
Okay.
Our
Yeah,
generation's
I
a
agree
lot
with
more
that.
suspicious of people and their motives.
Or just a lot less private in general.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That's an interesting thought.
So if I'm being transparent and open, for example, with like my bishop or the church as an institution, and they're not being completely honest with me, then I feel like, oh, well, why do I have some, complete trust? Not saying me, but
Yeah.
I mean, I guess maybe me, I don't know. But you know what I mean? That's the point I'm making is if there's not mutual transparency, then it kind of feels like they're hiding something from you, and why would they want to hide something from you? And it kind of does.
But don't
create
you
that seed
feel
of doubt.
like social media and phones and technology in general, it seems to me like youth are all trying to hide stuff.
I disagree.
Yeah, I think.
So would you give your phone to anybody and let them look through it?
No.
Depending on who it is.
Me?
Well, that's. I would
not
like
any-
to look through my phone.
Okay, so
I feel like we just expect.
so you are hiding stuff.
We just
No.
expect it to be
That's-
mutual.
that
Do you
It's
expect
not the same
somebody to
thing.
listen in on a conversation that you have that's a private conversation between people? Do you expect your mom to come and listen to all your private conversations? Because that's the exact same.
That's not
That's
what we're
reading
talking about
someone's.
with privacy.
No,
We're
that's
talking
reading
about-
someone's text messages, though. Is
Yeah.
the same as eavesdropping on
Yeah.
a
No,
conversation.
absolutely.
I'm
That
agreeing.
is interesting though, because you're saying that your generation expects more transparency.
Yes.
But along with that transparency, you have a lot more personal history and data that also increases along with transparency. That maybe you have like all this stuff like your browsing history, right? I don't think anybody would want that to be transparent for the whole world.
I could care less if everybody saw my browsing.
I think you'd be
Yeah,
surprised.
you're not a
Yeah,
millennial,
Yeah,
though.
I think you'd be
I
surprised
think you'd
too.
be surprised at how that could how that could affect you. I'm not talking about just advertisers.
I actually,
Slanderers.
Yeah, exactly. People that would build an opinion on you and shame you.
I feel like Shannon's making a good point though, because we're expected to be completely transparent with the church, so why shouldn't the church be completely transparent with me?
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm expected to tell
the bishop.
the bishop anything.
Bare your soul.
I'm expected to bare my soul to him, say the most private, whatever. If I've
Deepest
made a
confessions.
big
of my
mistake,
life.
I'm supposed to tell every part of that. And not that that bothers me, but I feel like that does. And if the church isn't doing the same thing with me, then
But what does that
that's
mean? What
disappointing
would
to
that
me.
mean then? What would that mean if the church was doing the same thing to you? For you?
I feel like and I think they've gotten a lot better in the past 3 years, but not that I'm saying they should actively be like teaching. Okay, these were the bad things of our history. This is the stuff that
I do.
You think they should teach that in church?
I think that there should be a church history Sunday school class, and it goes over everything that's gone over with the church. Once you're an adult.
Maybe not
One
Sunday,
example
maybe,
of that-
I don't know.
One
It's
example
hard.
of that in
That's
seminary,
hard.
though, is for example when the massacre that happened with like
The medals.
Yeah. One thing they didn't used to teach that, but now they do because
Yes.
of reasons like that. Other things such for example, black people not being able to receive the priesthood until like the 80s.
That was never a secret though.
Maybe not, but I know multiple people up in Utah that they didn't know about that type of stuff, and then when they figured that out, it's a problem for them.
Yeah.
And it's something that they are not okay with.
Yeah.
And they're like, why?
One thing that I see affects
I agree with that.
a lot of kids my age is the way that church handles gay members.
But that's not really
Okay,
a
but
privacy issue, but yeah, I think that's a
No,
big
yeah,
thing that
it
bothers
is. There's a
people.
lot of things
mean the way they-
BYU has done to its
but now
They-
or before?
students
Now,
Yes, to
now or before?
before.
It's unbelievably different now. Like when Dad and I were there.
Yeah, but no one knows about it.
Really?
No one knows about it.
Okay, because like before, they asked you to leave. Like,
Well, not only that, but I don't know if this is true, so don't like take this as gospel.
Oh,
I've
this part.
heard that like the authorities would go and like to gay bars and then like they'd scan the parking lot license plates to see if they were a BYU student.
that would maybe be the BYU.
That would be the
takes
BYU of
so
my age.
much.
I wouldn't doubt that.
Not general authorities, but BYU.
RAs.
What are they called?
It's the police. That BYU.
The BYU police.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they'd go to gay bars
Yes.
and go to the parking lots and scan the license plates.
I
That
don't
is
know if
true.
that's true or not, but it wouldn't surprise me.
That seems like an unbelievable amount of work. But
What else are they going to do?
Yeah.
No, the
It's either,
BYU
it's either
police.
that or a parking ticket.
Yep. Much prefer that.
What else is happening in Peru?
Yeah,
Nothing.
exactly. So what they did,
Kissing
they used
in
to be,
public.
and maybe they still are, is they became the enforcement arm of the honor code, the honor code office.
Wait, what?
The BYU police.
They just enforce the honor code.
Oh,
Pretty much.
yeah.
So they would actually go undercover and like pretend like they were your friend.
And then like try
They're-
and stay past midnight.
They'd,
Are you serious?
they'd pretend they were
Yes.
gay, and then right before, they'd be like, "You're arrested." Coming downtown.
No, but they
Not in
did
the way
pretend
you
like
think.
they were your friend, and then they would ask you about people you knew. Did they?
They did that to you.
Yes.
Didn't they? That's so
Do you
intense.
drink? Do your friends drink?
That's
I don't think that's okay.
stupid.
No, it's not.
That's not okay.
That's
It's
ridiculous.
deceitful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
not okay. One thing that I would say, continuing also the conversation, is that I think that Mormons in general are sheltered people. And
Oh.
the internet does not allow them to be sheltered.
Yeah.
So the internet affects the Mormon religion a lot because in our culture there's a lot of protecting, the youth, protecting these people from outside influences, making sure that they kind of almost live in this sort of bubble. And the
Yeah.
internet makes us that way. That's impossible.
Yeah.
And they can see they have all these different outlets, different places, and different things like that. And that makes it impossible for them to live a sheltered life.
And yet now they see two different worlds,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You're like, wait a minute, there's, what's the term?
Dichotomy.
Cognitive dissonance
Yeah.
between these two worlds. Wait a minute, so this is all happening here, but here's what's happening in my family and my
Yeah.
parents say, and this doesn't add up.
Yeah, and then they don't know how to deal with that. They've never had to deal with, okay, I have faith in this, but I recognize that there are parts that I don't maybe agree with or that make me uncomfortable, but that my faith trumps that in the end, or I'm willing to live with this because my faith in Christ is so strong that I know that somehow that's going to be okay. You know what I mean? They don't know how to live with that. They're only taught, okay, this is 100% right and 100% good, when the church isn't like that. Especially
Well, the church is run by people.
right. That's what I mean. That's what I mean. You have all this faith in. Even if you look at Joseph Smith, he's treated like a.
God.
Yeah, I mean, he is, and then you find things out about him, and people can word things very, very interestingly that are technically true, and then you're like, I've never been able to look at him as anything other than a perfect martyr, and now that I see these things about him, I can't go back to that place, and my faith has never been tested in that way, where I have to look at him and say, he's a person and he made mistakes, but this gospel is true, so I'm okay with that.
And that would be an example of, he's very recent comparatively to the other prophets.
Sure.
And during that time, there's history written everywhere
Yeah.
with Joseph Smith, right? So you have newspapers, you have court records, you have all this stuff. And for you guys now, that's what's the same thing, but it's on steroids,
Yeah.
right? And because if you were to go back and let's say you had someone like Moses, if there were records
Yeah.
about his whole life,
Right. It would be so different.
yeah, you wouldn't have the same.
Well, even with the records,
It's not.
even with the records we do have, it's different. Like Joseph Smith.
Well, the only
having-
records you have right now are scripture.
Right, but I'm saying even with that, we treat them differently. Like Abraham had 2 wives. That doesn't bother anyone. But Joseph Smith being a polygamist does bother people.
Yeah, it was recent.
Because it's recent. So it's
Abraham
just
Lincoln?
Abraham the prophet.
Oh.
But that doesn't bother anyone. No one's bothered by that.
Were you, Joe?
Like half.
I'm on Honest Abe here.
Okay. What I was going to say is that's not like exclusive to the church, though. Like,
No.
Martin Luther King was
Yeah.
a total womanizer.
Totally.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
Martin Luther King Jr.
correct.
Yeah.
Maybe Martin Luther King too. We don't have enough records on it.
Like father, like son.
Yes, he was. And he had close ties to leftist organizations.
Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah. But what he did was incredible.
Right.
Right.
You know, so that's a good example of looking
Great
at something like what
example.
Joseph Smith did. It's like,
So that would be an argument to someone that's like, well, I can't believe in the church because they hid this from me. And it's like, okay, well, did you know that
Yeah.
Martin Luther King Jr.'s like cheated on his wife all the
Multiple
time?
times, yeah.
Does that change what he did, or does
Right. Do you not believe in civil rights anymore?
that? Yeah. Black lives don't matter anymore.
Yeah, is that what you're saying? Yeah.
how much does, I mean, talking about the internet, but how much does social media impact that?
Eh,
I don't think that much.
I don't think that much either.
How does it impact what? Leaving the church?
Yeah.
There was something that Mom said that I didn't quite agree with, where you said that people were trying to hide things through their social media, like they're trying to paint their life to be something amazing. Is that what you were trying to say?
No. You mean tonight?
Yeah.
No, but I do think that people through social media only show their best side. But that's not what I was saying. I was
See,
saying that
I've
I
never-
feel like with technology there's a lot of secrecy. And so
That's interesting. So
I think that there's not more secrecy. I think that your secrecy and your private things are available to people.
I think you have to be more active about keeping things private.
Exactly.
Like you have to try to be private.
People would
Whereas
be just
before
as
you
secretive,
you
yeah.
have to try to get out there. Like
Now there's a paper.
you're
trail
just
for
out there.
everything.
So I guess I'm just saying, like, you all have a completely private part of your life from each other and from your parents because of technology. Where when I was growing up, I had like a phone, and I didn't have a phone in my room until I was 16. That was my 16th birthday present. Was I gotta have a phone, but you can't. But nothing was really hidden from, like, I didn't have a private part of my life from my parents.
I completely disagree.
I do too. If you look at any sort of like the older movies, all these kids, dad included, is a great example. They had zero supervision. Zero supervision. Their parents had zero idea what these kids were doing. Zero clue.
Yeah,
and
well,
social media allows
not-
them to
not me.
project that out to everybody.
I didn't.
I think so
didn't
you
have-
told your mom.
I think that
you
everybody
came home
had
and
more
told your mom
private lives
everything,
back
and
then.
you said,
Pretty
"This is
close.
what I talked about."
pretty close.
Okay, well maybe you are an exception, but in general, everybody had just as private of lives. And it was different because there wasn't a paper trail or a trail of something or a social media
Yeah.
to track
I
that.
agree that the difference is, I agree with you, but the difference is the access. That's the difference. The difference is the access to different people that your parents don't know about.
Yeah, like we didn't
Right.
like I didn't.
It's like, oh, you're texting who? You know, or you're communicating with who's this? Who's that? Who's, you know.
Like my circle of who I could communicate with was like
Okay, what age
So small.
demographic are we talking about right now, though? Because my life right now with the internet and social media is radically different than it would be if I were in high school.
Right, but you've gone through that, right?
But I wasn't in high school with social media.
Yeah.
No, but you did have a phone.
you had
Not a
a
smartphone.
you
No, but you had a.
I didn't have the internet.
No, you didn't have the internet. No.
didn't you have a
So-
MySpace?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you could only access it on.
You
the
made me
computer
delete
with
it
no
once you
wire.
found it.
And I had a Facebook once.
Yeah, I didn't have a
junior
Facebook
high.
till I was a sophomore in high school.
Yeah.
I had Facebook in junior high, and then I got a
We-
phone.
neither one of us
So it's
had-
both. It's both. I mean, it's everything since the internet and the phones and everything
Yeah.
else. I mean,
But when I was in high school, my sphere of influence, I guess, or the
Yeah.
people I had access to was maybe marginally bigger than the people that were in my classes in school.
Yeah.
Like I didn't
Yeah.
start even texting people from other schools until like I was a junior,
Yeah.
senior in high school.
Yeah.
So,
So you guys knew everyone that he was talking to. Anyway.
yeah, you guys would know
Everyone.
everybody anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not now. Like Monroe
That's not
has
the way it is with me.
I don't know. That's why I brought
I
up the
don't
question.
think it- yeah.
Because
Monroe has friends from all over the place. Like,
I'm just, super, super popular,
but it's
and my audience extends to all regions.
but yeah, I don't know. I guess I just feel like there's so much more, I don't know, availability
So
to
we're talking
you.
about the information from the internet being a big issue with millennials leaving the church. What else would there be?
I think besides
with
gaming,
millennials leaving the church,
No.
social issues,
Okay,
Yeah.
like
socio-political issues,
Yeah. Like Monroe was saying, I think
gay marriage
gay marriage. I think
is huge.
gay rights is a huge reason for people.
Yeah. When the
I think it's calmed down a little bit though in the past little bit.
No,
I
I
don't
don't think
know.
it has. I think it has.
I think that's at least a starting point for a lot of people who leave the church.
Is it a big deal
I
on
think you're
campus,
right.
Monroe? BYU campus? Is it a talking? Do people talk about it?
On campus?
Yeah, like other students. Like, can you believe how badly they treated gay people?
Like on Twitter they do, yeah.
I hardly hear about it on campus. Also, if I heard that, I would,
No one's gonna
I would
go-
automatically shut it off in my brain. Just not even pay attention.
your head's just in your books all the time. That's why.
Exactly.
Well, no one's gonna go parading around campus like the church is just,
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I
about
think
that.
you'd be surprised.
Did you see that thing a couple weeks ago of that guy walking around with the sign on his backpack saying, "Please wear more modest clothing"?
No, what?
He had like a paper on his backpack that had quotes from the For Strength of Youth pamphlet
Oh no.
We're not youth.
about like dressing modestly and
Oh.
how, and it said something like, "You're putting impure thoughts in my mind."
My
Are you
God.
kidding
Come
me?
on.
No,
Oh my God.
I'll
Was
try
he
and
being
find it.
serious or was
Yeah,
he making
that
a
No, he was
statement?
being he was being serious.
serious.
He was being serious.
But that's somebody that's just an extreme person. That's
You'd be surprised. And
But
throw
they
the hat
exist.
on. That's just your average local.
Yep.
Yeah, that's just a zoob. One of the many.
yeah.
I don't.
I'll edit this part out. But when I was there,
So this right here, you walked
Read it
around
out
BYU campus.
Yeah, what does it say?
It says, "When you dress immodestly, you send a message that is contrary to your identity as a son or daughter of God." For the Strength of Youth.
someone didn't just pose on that and make that up.
It's right
That just
there.
seems so crazy to me.
No.
It's not crazy.
What do you
Darn
mean?
Men. Men are
The
dogs.
patriarchy!
Did you say dogs or dorks?
Dogs.
Because it matters.
Men are dogs.
Dogs.
Wow, that's intense. Would you rather be a dog or a dork? This question.
A dork.
A
What kind of
door.
dog?
Luna.
No, definitely a dork.
A
She's a dog and a dork.
Yeah, she's.
bulldog. She's not a dork.
Yeah, she is.
She's like a dork as you can get.
Yeah, she's as dorky as you can get.
So this is just part 1 of this episode. Part 2 will be coming soon. It's important to know that everyone speaking is either currently at BYU or went to BYU. When we're laughing about BYU, we're really just laughing at ourselves. We're huge BYU fans. I gained some new insights from my kids on how they are navigating the waters of information about the church. Those waters are stormy and murky. It seems like there is a lot for all of us to learn. Hanging on to the iron rod is more important than ever, it seems.